Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's just dive right into it. Think about the makeup you probably use every single day, or the products you see sitting on your bathroom counter. You know the ones, the eyeshadows that shimmer, the lip glosses that sparkle, those highlighters that give you that absolute perfect radiant glow. It's a hugely sought-after look in modern beauty. But attaining that sparkle actually comes at a hidden price. It's a price that directly connects those glamorous items in your makeup bag to a complex, hidden, and honestly incredibly dangerous global supply chain. Today, we're talking about mica, the vital mineral responsible for literally all of that glitter.
It's absolutely wild when you really look at the contrast at the heart of this industry. On one hand, we've got this booming global cosmetics market. We're talking worth over 500 billion US dollars, right? It's overflowing with luxury brands, celebrity endorsements, the whole shebang. Yet the reality at the source is drastically different. The people actually mining this coveted, shimmering ingredient, often indigenous families in rural India, are trapped in extreme poverty. They're out there sifting through dirt, risking their lives for a mere $2 on a good day. It is this massive, jarring juxtaposition of immense corporate wealth right up against desperate human survival.
So here's our roadmap for today. 1. The true cost of sparkle. 2. Inside Jharkhand's illegal mines. 3. Pledges versus harsh reality. 4. Can regulation fix this? 5. Tracing tools and technology. And finally, 6. A guide for ethical consumers. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The true cost of sparkle.
To get that perfect glowing aesthetic everyone wants, a staggering 1.2 million metric tons of this naturally occurring mineral are mined every single year just in Jharkhand, a state in eastern India. It gets ground down into these incredibly fine, sparkling powders that end up in everything from your pressed foundations and eyeshadows all the way to the shiny paint on luxury cars. Now, Jharkhand has some of the world's largest and finest deposits of mica, but here's the catch. Despite producing almost half of India's coal, copper, and mica, nearly 50% of the people living in this state are in absolute poverty.
Section 2. Inside Jharkhand's illegal mines.
Get a load of this number. 70%. At least 70% of India's mica output is illegally mined. That's a crucial thing to wrap our heads around. Illegality isn't just a small, rogue fraction of this industry. It's literally the norm. The vast majority of the mica providing that high-end shimmer is coming from unregulated, super dangerous, completely illegal operations deep in the forests.
Now, it wasn't always like this. Back in the 1950s, over 20,000 miners were working legally across about 700 mines. But then, in 1980, the Forest Conservation Act came into effect. The intent was genuinely good. It was meant to protect India's vast forests, but it inadvertently classified mica as a protected forest produce. So practically overnight, it became illegal to mine or remove mica from the land. The industry didn't just pack up and stop, though. It just went entirely underground. And that essentially criminalized the daily survival of the people living there.
And survival is literally the keyword here. Take a look at this quote from Sadivya Komar of the Jharkhand Legislative Assembly. It really highlights how we need to reframe our view on this. When Western media spotlights evil child labor, local politicians and journalists actually argue that it misses the systemic context entirely. These are marginalized, indigenous Adivasi communities living on drought-stricken land that is totally unsuitable for farming. Plus, there's little to no government support for health, education, or childcare. So for these families, mining scrap mica isn't about exploitation by local parents. It's a desperate daily tactic just to put food on the table.
To put a human face to those statistics, let's look at Karishma. She's 14 years old, and she has been working in these mines since she was 5. She and her family walk 10 kilometers into the forest and spend days clawing through dusty piles of rubble with their bare hands, literally no protective gear at all. They're looking for what's called divra, or scrap mica, and for all of that grueling, back-breaking work, they earn just 10 US cents for a kilo of scrap.
But we're not just talking about scraped hands here. As miners seek out bigger quantities, they have to descend into abandoned, super unstable cave shafts with zero lighting and no safety gear. It is estimated that 10 to 20 people die every single month in mine collapses. And because the mining is illegal in the first place, these accidents go entirely unreported and uninvestigated. I mean, the miners can't exactly call the authorities without risking a total halt to their only source of income, right?
Section 3. Pledges versus harsh reality. So, local suppliers actually offer a pretty different narrative to justify their supply chain and labor ethics. Take Ruby Mica, for example. They're a family business that processes up to 1,000 kilos of mica powder a day for global export.
Their director, Ankit Bagaria, pushes back against the bad publicity. He states that they're generating employment, providing a livelihood, and raising the standard of living for the region. And it is true that the local cottage industry of sorting and processing mica employs a ton of people in the Kodorma district, even though they're working long hours in confined spaces, breathing in hazardous mica dust.
But when we trace things back to the actual miners deep in the forest, the reality is far darker than simply generating livelihood. Because they have to operate illegally, these miners have zero access to formal banking. When faced with health or family expenses, they turn to unlicensed lenders who charge insane interest rates. We're talking up to 200% a year. This creates a totally vicious dependency. Miners are forced to sell only to the trader they borrowed from at whatever prices that trader dictates, leading directly into a modern-day cycle of bonded labor. Add in the criminal syndicates running the areas and the constant need to bribe forest authorities, and you start to see a system specifically designed to keep the most vulnerable trapped.
Section 4. Can regulation fix this?
Following some major child labor exposés, global coalitions like the Responsible Mica Initiative, or RMI, were formed by massive brands like L'Oreal and Chanel. But here's the issue. These are voluntary pledges. They completely lack strict penalties. Compare that to the European Union's conflict mineral laws, which heavily regulate gold, tungsten, and tin, and actually issue real fines to businesses that breach human rights in their supply chains. The big problem here? Mica is currently completely excluded from those strict EU laws. Why? Mostly because it's a cheap raw material, and the industry claims the cost of compliance doesn't seem to make economic sense yet.
Back in Jharkhand, the indigenous miners and local advocates view government regulations totally differently compared to those corporate perspectives. To them, the solution isn't banning mica, and it certainly isn't relying on distant corporate pledges. It's legalization. They argue that restoring mica as a legally harvestable forest product, kind of like fruits and flowers, would allow small-scale indigenous mining operations to finally exist legally. This would literally eliminate the criminal syndicates, stop the constant need for bribes, and finally pave the way for real safety standards and fair market wages.
Section 5. Tracing Tools and Technology. As researchers point out, corporate transparency remains largely elusive not because we lack the technology, but honestly because there's a lack of interest. Think about it. Industries building supercomputers and self-driving cars claim they cannot trace a simple mineral supply chain, but blockchain traceability exists today. It can verify the exact origin and movement of minerals across international borders. It acts as this digital, completely unalterable ledger system, a permanent, transparent record that enforces true, undeniable supply chain accountability.
Because right now, the current tracking systems are basically designed to be opaque. In those local cottage factories, legally sourced mica is routinely blended right in with illegally mined scrap. This effectively washes it clean with forged or super generalized paperwork. By the time it's mixed up and exported to places like China or Germany, its true origin is totally erased. Blockchain completely eliminates this by forcing verifiable origin data at every single step. It really just requires these massive luxury brands to finally build the cost of compliance into their value chains.
Section 6, a guide for ethical consumers. Did you know that 80% of beauty brands rely on influencers to promote their new product launches? That is a massive lever of power. So here is a concrete action plan for influencers to drive change. First, thoroughly research where the brands you promote are sourcing their mica. Second, use your platform to publicly question those brands on their transparency. If they hide behind voluntary pledges, call it out. And third, educate your followers. Be totally honest about the supply chain realities of the products you're reviewing. As for everyday conscious consumers, we've got some actionable steps for you too. First off, we have to accept that ethical trading might mean paying a slightly higher cost at the checkout counter. That's just the true cost of compliance. Second, actively demand blockchain tracking from your favorite beauty brands. Third, consider brands that use synthetic mica. It gives you the exact same shimmer without any of the human cost. And finally, vote with your wallet. Simply stop supporting brands that refuse to answer basic questions about their supply chains. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to take away from this explainer today. The next time you apply that gorgeous highlighter or sparkly eyeshadow, just ask yourself, is the shimmer in your makeup really worth the ultimate cost paid by the indigenous families of Jharkhand? The power to change this industry lies in demanding true transparency, enforcing strict legal regulations, and refusing to turn a blind eye to the true cost of our beauty. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep asking those tough questions.